I was working with this child this week, and he was very angry with me for some reason, and he was, like pinching me. He was going like this with his fingers and trying to, you know, get angry and remove his frustration on me. And this is very common, kids pinching, kids hurting. What do we do about such behaviors? That's what I want to talk to you about today in this video. I'm Reena Singh. I'm an occupational therapist. I've been working with families for the last 25 years, supporting using occupational therapy with other complementary approaches. So, this boy walked into my session. He had a face to face session with me, and he's like 4 years old. And he was scared of vestibular. So, because I put the swing and he was finding it, he was scared to climb up on the swing. So I realized that there is some bit of vestibular problem that's going on around here. And then he got his favorite toys. He loved animals, so he got his favorite toys. He got his favorite whatever that he wanted. I took out more toys from my cupboard so that he feels happy and comfortable. And then I could kind of start putting my demands and evaluating him. So while he was playing, he was good. The moment I took away certain toy from him, he got very angry with me. And when he got angry, he started doing this, and he was very angry basically. And that was his way to deal with that emotion that he was feeling very uncomfortable. Now I held his hands and I said, no, that's not allowed. But he was not listening. He went on, and he kept doing it again. So I held him and I counted to 10, and I was like, maybe after 10 he'll be fine. But he was still angry, and he kept, with those little hands, he kept pushing, and hurting. In his way, he was trying to hurt to show that he's very angry. Why did I take his toy away? So that's what he was doing. And then I asked his mom, what does she do usually? And she says she takes him into a room, like a closed room, and she waits with him and waits for that behavior to settle down. So we went to the toilet, a small little room with the child, and we closed the room because there were too many toys outside and everything. So we went there and we sat there. He was angry for some time, but within like 5-7 minutes, he was calm. Saying no, shouting at him was not working. Taking him in that room, letting him scream, letting him do whatever he wanted. And we were not saying, don't do this, it's okay, calm down. None of that. We were there with him. And we said, yeah, we see that you're angry. We know you want this, but he knew that he's not going to get it. So after like say 2-3 minutes, we came out and he started playing with some other set of toys, and he was absolutely fine. So this boy was clearly having like a tantrum, like, you give me, if you don't give me, I get angry. And he could regulate himself very fast. The moment we came out, he was distracted. So this is one part of the story. He was not very, he was in control of his behavior. He was angry, definitely. He was not happy that we were saying no. He was not happy that we were setting limits on him. Not at all happy. But he regulated himself. So this is one boy who came to see me. There's another boy who came to see me. And I'm going to explain the difference between meltdowns and tantrums to you. And I think the best is when you see the behavior, So there's another boy who came to see me. He's like around 8 years old, okay? He has a diagnosis of autism. Both of them had a diagnosis of autism. And this boy, when he came, he was listening to everything that I was telling him. So I told him, let's, everything, come sit on the swing, fix the blocks, do the puzzle. I asked him, because I wanted to evaluate, he allowed me to evaluate him. He came into positions that I asked him to, everything he was doing. And then he started, I could sense that something is going, like he was losing it. So he started getting angry. And so this boy was also not very verbal, So he started getting angry and he started pulling my hair. And now he did not want something, He didn't want a toy, or he didn't want like a tangible thing from me. He wanted me to stop doing the activity with him because he was getting worked up because of too much demand that was placed on him. So anyway, so he was not happy with the whole thing, and I saw that there was this increasing behavior that was coming up where he was getting restless. He started pacing around. He started, he started pulling hair, he started pinching, he started screaming. The earlier child that I spoke also was screaming, but this screaming was because he was losing it, it was so obvious that he was breathing fast, he was running fast, he was pacing fast. He when I gave him like a barrel, like because I thought a closed space would help him, he was not happy to go into the barrel. He just wanted to, like, I mean, it kept escalating to a point that he just wanted to pinch and hurt himself, and that was a clear sign of meltdown, because in here he was not in control of himself. Okay, he was not in control of himself. He was losing it, and all that we had to do was give him a lot of deep pressure activities, give him something heavy to hold so that he feels more grounded. Give him very simple, slow rocking, which he was not allowing in the barrel. Finally, he was lying in the barrel, like a drum, and we gave him that left to right kind of a movement, which did allow him to some extent. So, my point that I'm trying to tell you is, in the first child's case, he was very clear, I want this. If you don't give me this, I am going to shout and I'm going to get angry. The behavior was same, pinching and all of it. Here, it was that there's too much demand. I cannot cope with it. Give me something by which I can regulate myself. So here it's going into a meltdown. So reducing the demand, giving more regulation strategies was what helped. So it's very important to understand the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, because in a meltdown, the child has no control over his behavior. The brain goes into like it switches off, because it's like not able to process a lot of stuff that's happening. So that's what happened with the second child. It took him a lot of time, like with the earlier boy, he could regulate. Yeah, see, some kids, when they have a tantrum, they take like 2 to 3 hours also, but they are in control. They are not talking on their, they are not complying because they are angry with you. Here, he was not angry. He was just out of control. It took him a lot of time to kind of come back and to get settled, and we used a lot of things, like we used deep pressure, we used giving him heavy things to hold, using a heavy weighted blanket, giving him slow rocking, playing some soft music in the background, which he had associated with calmness in the beginning. So those are the things that helped him. But if I would tell him, no, 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 it's okay, calm down, no, that's not going to help him. So my point that I'm trying to tell you is, even though the behavior looks same, it's hitting, it's pinching, it's screaming, but to understand that what is causing this behavior, what happened just before the behavior, and what is it that I'm doing after the behavior matters a lot. What I do after the behavior would be when I know that this behavior is because of whatever reason that you feel it is, it is because the child wants the toy, or maybe the vestibular input that I gave, the swing that I gave was too much, or maybe the smell in the room was too much, or there was too much visual happening, or there was too much light. Then you see that there are some things like meltdowns that are coming up. So having this clarity and accordingly dealing with it would be very helpful, because I know of some parents, like, now the earlier child who just wanted a toy from me and I did not give it to him, and I didn't want to give him. It was a boundary that I'm going to set. And whenever we set a boundary for any child, they would get angry. They would definitely, because they want things their way. It's like limit testing. You're pushing, they're pushing. They're testing. In both the cases, using a visual support would be very helpful so that they know what is expected, what are we going to do with them, using a schedule, or drawing it as you're talking or interacting with the child really, really helps in a big way. But the point is, if the child has a tantrum, then you're not going to give deep pressure and you're not going to give vestibular. You're going to distract the child, give some toys, talk about something else. That is true. But when the child has a meltdown, you cannot distract the child and say, oh, look at that bird flying, or look at this. No, you have to use regulation strategies and get the child to become more calmer. Yeah. So this is a difference that I want you to remember. Maybe you already know them, but some of you had mailed me asking me to give you the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum. When it's a tantrum, you can see the child is in control. Child is upset, but is in control. As I said, using visual strategies in both the cases would be very helpful. What do we do with a child who has meltdowns? The child would definitely need therapy. even this child who has autism is going to need therapy, but this child will need more front loading, which means both of them need more front loading. But with this child, I would have, like, when the child wakes up in the morning, good deep pressure activities early in the morning, activities like more proprioception in the, as soon as the child wakes up, deep pressure and proprioception is what I would have in as a morning routine. And then in the afternoon, there'll be activities that'll be done with the child. There'll be a visual that'll be used, and all are these the ways by which we work on teaching the body better ways of coping with stress. So that is how we work with meltdowns. But when it is a tantrum, that's a very clear boundary that you're setting, and you're okay if your child is crying. You're okay if your child is screaming. You're not like, you don't. I know of some parents, not this parent that I worked with, but they say, like, stop crying, I'll give you a chocolate. And the child stops crying and he gets a chocolate. So the child learns every time that I cry, they give me a chocolate. But if I give him toys and all that he was already playing with, but he throws away the toys, and then we go into a room. Again, it depends on what works for your child, but into a room. And the reason we go into a room is because when there are other people in the room, like, you have grandparents and you have other toys around, then the child is throwing things. When the child has a tantrum, throwing things, hurting you, pinching you, and then everybody comes to try and solve. It's always better if one person is managing the behavior. So then grandparents come, and then uncles come, and aunties come. It's okay, don't let him cry, and all of it. And then that reinforces. The child learns, every time I cry, I get a lot of attention. So that is another behavior that starts, kind of, that's another dynamic starts happening. So that's why the good idea would be to take the child into a room, smaller room. You're there with your child. It's not like a timeout, okay, you are alone. No, you are with your child, and you're like, it's okay, I get that you're angry, and it's okay to stay in this anger for some time. And the child's anger will transform. With this child, the one who was having a tantrum, he was very angry, and then that anger transformed into crying. So the emotion shifted, and then he was calmer and he was distracted. So my point and the intention of sharing this was to understand the difference between meltdowns and tantrums, and to check if it is physiologically the child is distressed literally. That happens with meltdowns. And if it is meltdowns, you know how to work on it. If it is tantrums, you know how to work on it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you some clarity on how to work on and how to help your child when the child has a tantrum or a meltdown. I'll see you next week.